Are black people, black politicians, the so-called elite, are they in conspiracy with white supremacists? I think they are. For the past 130 years, the black upper middle class, elite class of Negroes have been working with white society to exterminate over 90% of the black population. The talented tent taught by W.E.B. Du Bois, who was christened, who was blessed by John D. Rockefeller with this philosophy. When you look at so-called black males in American society, there is no ecosystem in place to ensure our elevation, our sustenance, our survival. When governments historically dominated and conquered a people, they did it by destroying the men of that people, not the women. The women usually was used to continue the bloodline of the conqueror, but the men were castrated, destroyed, enslaved. Even in black society, this happened. You watched the movie 12 Years a Slave, you saw a black woman was married to a slave owner, a boss of a plantation. So the destruction of the black man oppresses the people, but the destruction of the so-called black man economically, culturally, educationally, in all aspects is assisted by black politicians, black preachers, black elites. When Margaret Sanger introduced the philosophy of eugenics to W.E.B. Du Bois and the black church, the Negro Project to exterminate the masses of the black population, they actually went along with it and used their platforms to encourage the black women to kill their children with abortions, to get sterilized because of their economic and social political position in society, their social status. But their social status is manufactured by this government. The government destroyed black economic power directly, indirectly. You see it with the destruction of so-called Black Wall Street, which was actually set up by students of Booker T. Washington. You know, if you read his book, Up From Slavery, you'll detail he actually started Black Wall Street in Tuskegee, which is very close to Tulsa, Oklahoma, Alabama. But the government destroyed that, inflicted terrorism with their Jim Crow laws. So the black people was frozen in fear of the doom of the boogeyman, the literal boogeyman, the Ku Klux Klan, the threat. If you ever tried to succeed, they'll destroy your city. They'll lynch you, kill you, burn you, destroy you. And these communities were predominantly dominated by black men. They were destroyed out of existence, sent to wars all over the world to get killed, came back with no rewards. And this was celebrated by the so-called black elites. The countdown to the end of the black population has begun. And they say when 90% of the Negroes are exterminated, this will bring about a new world when the talented 10 Negroes can unite with the rest of the world and create a harmonious utopia. But they see the black people as the main obstacle to this. I wrote an article years ago called The Body in one of my books, Enigma. Also, it was in Black Magazine, where I actually compared a nation of people to a human body, similar to what they did in the Republic by Plato. And I say the black body is suffering from schizophrenia, in a coma, and the body that they have is being drained of its resources by all other inadequate bodies, and the resources are not distributed equally. But you could look at this and compare it to the United States also. The black people are part of the body of America. If you look at a human being, how the heart and the blood system work, the circulatory system work, nutrients is distributed fairly and equally all over the body, and those in dire need gets the precedence over those that's not in distress. That's how the body works. It doesn't really discriminate between the organs of the liver, the kidneys, and it's just basically going off the resources that it has available based on the food that you eat, and those nutrients are distributed to keep the body functional and healthy. And based on perception, human perception, things that are symmetrical, human beings that are symmetrical are seen as beautiful. But really, this applies primarily to women because women aren't expected to go out into the world and suffer injury, brutality. Like men go out and fight wars and work on farms and build structures, and a brick might fall on their head, so their face might be asymmetrical. But the female looks at an asymmetrical face of a man, and they'll see that as attractive because they know that probably came about due to them working. But a man looks at a woman's face, and if it's symmetrical, without blemish, that's beautiful. That's the whole idea of the so-called Beauty and the Beast. But if you look at a body, minus the face aspect, if the body has a small arm and a huge arm, that'll look atrocious, hideous to a person. That is shocking. Like DJ Paul has a small arm, and it's like he hides the fact that it's small because people are not used to seeing an oddity, like you look at a person with a long leg and a short leg, a hunchback, you know. But this is how America looks because the black people who's part of America is being deprived of resources, and the black people aren't growing equally to the other organs. So it's a deformity there if you look at the body as a whole. And usually when you have an ailment that affects one organ, you take medicine that is essential to that organ. So you got heart disease, you got liver disease, you might have too much potassium in your system, too much salt. You take care of that aspect in order for you to get better. But when it comes to the so-called blacks in this body of America, the government says that when the black people suffer an ailment, they must distribute resources to everybody. This will happen with the so-called civil rights movement of the 60s, in which all other groups of people were the beneficiaries of that, even though the ailments primarily subjected and harmed the black people. The remedy they declared was for all organs of the body. And when you take treatment like chemotherapy, this is one of the problems people have with chemotherapy is the cancer can be unique to a specific region, but they're probably not sure if the cancer spread or not or whatever. But they'll give you chemotherapy that would affect the entire body and possibly can kill the entire body. This medicine that you give can destroy the whole body. But there are other treatments that are like they call it. They got treatments that target specific areas of the body to kill cancers. Ultrasound. They have treatments that attack colon cancer using ultrasound. They have certain laser treatments that target a specific area of the body to kill a cancerous tumor, or they could just cut the cancer out right there. But when you give a treatment to organs that doesn't need the treatment, or you have a deficiency in one area of the body, and you just distribute these resources to the entire body, you might end up harming those aspects, or those aspects might actually grow faster than the deprived area, and it might become bigger, and the entire body might look like a deformity, a oddity. It looks hideous. That's why people come here when they see people living under the bridge, black people living under the bridge. You look at these extremely wealthy, technologically advanced cities. It doesn't look right. It looks horrible. But they want to, and this is what their scheme is, they want to starve the black people out of existence. They want to remove the so-called black people from the body of the United States. But they don't realize that this body, that they this organ or this aspect of this body that they want to remove is crucial to the functioning and survival of the body. It's like saying you want to remove the heart, you want to remove the brain of the body because you don't like, you know, whatever reason you have to remove the heart and the brain. Then this body that even though all the other organs are intact, the body will die because the heart and the brain is being removed, or the liver, the kidneys. This is how important the so-called black people really is to the United States. But they want to destroy the black people, replace them with other organs. Like they want to bring in other immigrant organs to try to replace and replenish the so-called black people's aspect of the body. But these organs that they bring in aren't as valuable or crucial or essential because these organs have been failing in their own countries. Like, why would you take a failing organ and transplant it into a healthy person and take out a healthy organ which made you who's got you where you were? Why would you take those organs out and bring in organs from a country that failed out of spite? They say you cut off the nose to spite the face, because they did that to the Sphinx because they didn't like the fact that the nose showed the Negro features. So they just destroyed it. When they destroyed the nose, they destroyed the face. These people are disturbed and crazy. But the Negro politicians, the Democrats that we vote into these positions, have been collaborating to your demise, to our demise. And they use poverty and crime. They use crime and violence as a pretext. But crime and violence are reactions to deprivation. It's similar to how when the body is deprived of nutrients and food and water, it begins to consume itself, and the pains will hurt. You look at that as that's violence. The body is inflicting violence because it needs to be sustained with resources and minerals, and you haven't done your part in getting those resources with these ligaments and these organs and this. You got a functional, healthy body. You got hands, legs, a brain, ears, eyes, and you couldn't get the food and the resources necessary to sustain this body. And because you didn't do that, the body will consume itself, and it will hurt. This is what violence is. It's a conscious effort to starve the Negroes into obliteration. You see how easily it is for the Caucasians that run America to give billions of dollars to foreigners, free money. But it's very difficult for them to allocate resources to the so-called Negro. And when the Negro is in starvation and it begins to consume itself, they want to throw the Negro in prison, isolate the Negro into prison. But they don't do that to their own people because they want to replace the Negro out the body. But what I think is, and I want to actually have more solution-based discussions, I think the Negro need to not be victims of this. And the way they get to justify victimizing the so-called Negro is when the so-called Negro react to the starvation naturally by consuming itself. And they use that. You did this crime. You inflicted this violence. Now you must go to jail. We must pass these laws. We must imprison you forever. The Negro need to refuse to participate in this. When I talked about earlier, there is no ecosystem, there's no economic base for black men. Even the idea, the negative stereotypes that is harnessed and conveyed by the average Negro against the Negro. They refuse to employ or hire a black man for the, carpentry work, plumbing work. They'd rather give that work to a Mexican. That furthers encourages that so-called Negro to go and do these crimes because the jobs, the way the opportunities to get this money is very scarce. But to do crime and to violence is open. They say the narrow path and the wide path. You see what I'm saying? The easy path, but that's a trap. You must refuse and resist the temptations to consume yourself because the government has starved the Negro. The Negro must practice, like in Islam, regular charity, meaning just donating, giving money, and supporting so-called people with ideas. Just doing more, circulating more money amongst the so-called Negroes, amongst each other. So you will actually prevent the masses from going out there due to deprivation or starvation of resources, going to do the violence, justifying the Negroes, the talented tent Negroes, and the white supremacists, justifying their genocide against us. Talking about there's not enough money for a black woman with a child, but there's enough money for Ukraine. But in the so-called richest country in the world, a black woman is encouraged to kill her unborn child because they say there's no money. Or they say she doesn't have enough education or whatever excuse they want to justify genocide. Similar to in the Bible of the book of Exodus, when Pharaoh passed a law to kill off the male children of the Israelites because they was getting too big and powerful. So they told the women, the nurses had to kill off the children. Even in the Roman Empire, in the 12 tables, one of the laws, one of the 12 says, if a child is born with a deformity, it must be killed at once. But they could determine that dark skin is a deformity, and that could justify the killing. It's the same law. Or being poor is a deformity, an oddity. Even though the child is healthy, these other traits, you could say that those are infirmities, but that must justify the child's destruction. But the main objective for them is to exterminate the masses of the Negro and the talented tent, such as Sharpton, the so-called Boule, the Uncle Toms. They have been in collaboration to bring this about. But they need us to comply. And every time you Negroes, every time you perpetuate the stereotypes that the dominant culture feeds and give to you about how negative and how detrimental the so-called black male is, and how the so-called black male must be deprived of economics because you don't think they have good work or whatever. You're also in collaboration with that. But I'm gonna end this video.